I'm Steve Baenziger, and I'm with the University of Nebraska. I'm the small grains breeder here, and I want to welcome you to our virtual field day. I wish we could meet in person, but this year that's not going to happen. Before we start, I want to thank the Nebraska Wheat Board for helping to sponsor this trial and giving us the dollars and support to do the breeding and also the testing. I also want to thank Cody Creech and Amanda Easterly who run the trial. Now, before we actually get into the plots, I always like to remind growers that we have a lot of very good data from previous years, and Amanda Easterly and Cody are getting better ways of allowing you to access this. But I always like looking at the 3-year averages. Now, anytime you have a 3-year average, you can have 1 year where a wheat did really well and really knocked it out. So I always like looking at the top group. And if you look at the 3-year averages this year, from last year, it was Langdon from PlainsGold, Cowboy from the Colorado Research Foundation, a Westbred line 4462, and then Ruth, Rubadoux, and Freeman, all from the University of Nebraska, Long Branch, Westbred Grainfield, SY Monument, and then Overland and Link. So I just want you to look at the lines this year. Remember, every year is different. Remember, your farm is different from every trial. And then we can see what looks best for you, but at least you'll be in the right ballpark.
Hello, my name is Tyler Benninghoven. I am the seed and trait specialist for PlainsGold out of Colorado, and I'm here to talk to you about the wheat varieties that come from Colorado State University.
Okay, the first variety here is Scout 66. Very few people grow this at all. It's only an heirloom wheat. It's in this trial mainly to show the progress we've made from 1966 up till the present day, roughly 45 years later, 55 years later. That's Scout 66. The next one is Turkey. This wheat is the wheat that came in as the tradition. It was brought in 1873. Before Turkey wheat, everybody in Nebraska grew spring wheat because nothing could take our heat or our winters. This is the first true wheat that could survive Nebraska conditions over the winter, and it's here again to show progress. This is Freeman. As we said, it's one of the top 5 yielding wheats in the state, in this part of the state, I should say. It's a good line. It has a lot of Alliance in it, which was a very popular wheat in the Panhandle. Has reasonable stem rust, very good stem rust, good leaf, fairly good leaf rust, very good stem rust, pretty good stripe rust, which is a good thing because that means you can save on fungicides when you have that. It's a little bit earlier than some of our other wheats, but it's had a very, very good record here. Pretty good straw strength. It's a shorter coleoptile wheat and has just been a real workhorse for the area. This is Good Streak. Good Streak is an older variety that came out of the Nebraska program. It's a true tall wheat, though this year you can see with the heat and the drought it's a little bit shorter. It is a long coleoptile wheat, which means you can plant it deep to moisture. Excellent stem rust, has lost all of its stripe rust, so you would have to spray this with a fungicide if you're in a stripe rust year, and it is susceptible to wheat streak mosaic virus. But it's actually had a very good season so far, a little bit east of here. It seems like it's been a very dependable tall wheat. This is Siege. Now, Siege is a wheat we don't recommend for dryland production in western Nebraska. It's actually ideally suited for eastern Nebraska. It has very good leaf, stem, and stripe rust resistance. It has good soil-borne mosaic virus resistance, excellent test weight, pretty good quality, pretty good protein, I should say, and it's just done really well there. It may fit under irrigation, but it's not a racehorse wheat for irrigation. So Siege is one that's in the trial mainly to document that it probably doesn't belong here. Now this wheat is Overland, and we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but I want to show you something you have to watch when you look for averages. This is a plot. Overland is much better than this. It was poor seed quality. It had a germination problem from the very get-go, and so it did not come up do as well. So they probably will not report Overland this year, mainly because the data is totally unrepresentative of the variety. At one time it was the most popular variety in the state, and it has tremendous winter hardiness, so you would never see a stand like this after a winter. This is Panhandle. Now Panhandle is an interesting wheat. It's a wheat that's being grown by growers who like straw. They like the tall height. And on a year like this where it's so droughty and short, sometimes having a tall wheat is very important. But it's actually a true semi-dwarf. And so you're going to compare this wheat to the next two. One is Good Streak and one is Pronghorn. But it's been very good that way, and it's almost as tall as the true talls, but it's got the straw strength of a semi-dwarf and it's got the yield of the semi-dwarf, so it's a much higher yielding, taller wheat. It has lost its stripe rust resistance, which makes it a very susceptible wheat and one that you would have to spray when that is present, but otherwise it's good quality and it's been a good wheat with good test weight. And again, if you need a tall wheat, this is the one with the best straw. Now, this is Pronghorn, and Pronghorn and Good Streak are the two true tall wheats outside of Scout and Turkey in the variety trial. Pronghorn comes out of the Centura wheat class, very long coleoptile, excellent quality, excellent test weight, but it doesn't have the straw strength of Panhandle. It has lost a lot of its stripe rust resistance also, but a really beautiful quality, high test weight wheat. And if you needed a long coleoptile, it and Good Streak are the two ones to look at. This is Rubadoux. Rubadoux is one of the workhorse wheats, and it was co-released with Wyoming. The name is for Rubadoux Pass because that was one of the early passes between Nebraska and Wyoming. It actually has very good drought tolerance, and I think it shows pretty well here. It has pretty good yield under irrigation too, so it's a broadly adapted type of wheat. It can yield well when you don't have moisture. It can yield well when you do have moisture. What we like about it is it's got pretty good stripe rust resistance still, so in really severe years you might spray late if you and only once, as opposed to on some of the more susceptibles you may have to spray twice. Very good stem rust resistance also. Very nice quality, but the main thing is it's just a really good wheat for taking whatever the environment gives you. Hot and dry, lots of moisture, it can do well under both. This is Ruth. Ruth is probably the newest workhorse wheat. This wheat has topped the state variety trials for a number of years. Now with newer wheats coming out, it's still in the top category, maybe not the top. As you can see, it was the third highest yielding wheat in the Panhandle. What we like about Ruth is that it has very good disease resistance. It's got a little better stripe rust resistance than does Rubadoux and Freeman, which have both good resistance. Okay, this one seems to be a notch better. It has very good test weight. This is one that's going to be in the 60 pounds per bushel almost all the time. So it's a very good test weight wheat. Excellent quality. But the other thing that we really like about it is we've had a lot of years since it was developed. One year we were a month earlier than every previous year we've ever had, and it still topped the trial. The next year we were a week later than every year we've had previously, and it still topped the trial. This is a broadly adapted wheat. It can do well in eastern Nebraska, do well in the Panhandle. So it's a wheat that you can plant and not worry about, are you going to get moisture, are you not going to get moisture? It's a very, very flexible and forgiving wheat. This is Wesley. Wesley is really an irrigated wheat. It's what we would call a racehorse wheat. If you're shooting for 120 bushels per acre under irrigation, you want a wheat that's got good standability, and this has great straw strength. It has pretty good test weight, good quality. Its caveat is it's lost its stripe rust resistance, and it's very susceptible to wheat streak mosaic virus. It has been good. Basically, under irrigation is where we would put it. We put it in here for people that have very good soils and occasionally get good rains. Then it will do extremely well there also, but it's truly an irrigated wheat. This is Settler CL. And Settler CL, along with Rubadoux and Ruth, were the workhorse wheats. At one time, this was the most popular wheat grown in Nebraska. And the reason was it has the winter hardiness to survive in South Dakota. So it was a co-release with South Dakota. It has the drought tolerance to survive in Wyoming, so therefore it was co-released with Wyoming. It is a single gene clear field, so it doesn't have quite as much tolerance of the herbicide as would some of the newer 2-gene clear field wheats, but it's been very good. Unfortunately, it's lost its stripe rust, has a little bit of tolerance to wheat streak, but not a lot of that. But the main thing for this variety is excellent test weight. In growers that know how to manage it, it's just been really, really good. And again, its broad adaptation takes a lot of the risk out of growing it. Okay, this is NE 14434. This is one that has done extremely well for the last 2 years in the Panhandle. I think this year we'll see how it does. It looks like the heat and drought may have hit it a little bit. It's been a good wheat. It's been a pretty nice tolerant wheat for most of the things that have come out. We'll have to get one more year data before we make a decision on it, but it's a potential line that could go fairly quickly. This is another experimental line, NE, wait a minute. Yeah, this is NE 14691. This is one that's the South Dakota by Camelot, pardon me, and with good stripe rust, and we'll see how it does this year. Okay. Okay, this is NE 14696. This is a wheat we're testing in the Panhandle. The reason why we're interested in it is actually in the regional trials in South Dakota for the last 2 years. It's been the highest yielding wheat in the USDA regional trials. So we think it belongs probably in the northern Panhandle, more so than in the south, but we'll see how it does. It's a Nebraska line by Overland, and it has a lot of the Overland characteristics. Very good leaf rust, stem rust, and stripe rust. We'll just see how it does. Tends to be a little bit on the later side. Pretty good test weight, reasonable quality. It should be a good wheat if it continues to hold up. This is NE 15420. This is a wheat that we don't recommend yet for dry land. It seems to be just okay in dry land. Where it really seems to excel is under irrigation. So what we're trying to do is to document, is it an irrigated wheat? If you look at the 2-year averages in the irrigated trials, it is the highest yielding wheat of all the irrigated wheats. So it looks like it has good utility there. In the dry lands, like I say, it's just mediocre. It doesn't have a lot of stripe rust resistance. And it's just a little bit of dab of wheat streak, but not a lot to write home about. It's a good west bred by one of our good white wheats, but it is a red wheat. So we'll see how it does. But this one, even though it's in the dryland trial, it's mainly to document that it belongs in the irrigated trial. Okay, this is NE 15624. Again, it's another new experimental. It's probably been in the trial maybe 1 year. This may be its first year in parts of the state, but I think it was in last year in other parts. It's a good Nebraska by Kansas line. In my trials, which we have probably 50 location years of data before it gets to here, it's been outstanding. So we'll wait and see how it does. But it's been a very good wheat. It'll be at least 2 years away from release. This is NHH 144913-3. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this wheat. It's a heartbreaker. It's a bronze chaff, 2-gene Clearfield, approved by BASF for release. It has had a pretty good yield record. It's got good stripe rust and stem rust. It's got a little bit of wheat streak and very good soil-borne. It's a Settler Nebraska by Brawl cross. Problem with it is that it's soft, so we can't grow it in a hard wheat region. So we're testing it just one last year in case there might be a niche market for someone wanting to grow a soft wheat in a hard wheat area, but it'd have to be under contract. Otherwise, we'll take it to the east to see if anybody in the soft wheat region needs it. This is NW 13493. It's a very, very good hard white winter wheat. Has tremendous yield record in the Panhandle and in Nebraska. If it were a red wheat, it would be released without a question. It's just been that outstanding. For white wheats, we need to make sure there's a market, and we'll have to figure out where there is. Currently, we're working with a milling company, and they may purchase it or license it for organic production. We'll wait and see. If not, we'll just look for another partner to develop it. What we like about this line, it's got good leaf, stem, and stripe rust, good soil-borne mosaic virus. It's got excellent test weight, excellent quality, very, very good quality. But most importantly for a white wheat, it doesn't sprout. So this is one that would be very risk adverse for a grower that doesn't want to have sprouting issues with white wheats. This one is a non-sprouting type. And in fact, last year where we had a lot of rain in the east, we had 2 reds and a white, and this white, it had the highest falling number of the 3 wheats. It was every bit as good as a red wheat. This is another white wheat, NW. You can tell it's white because instead of NE, which is for our reds, it's NW, 15443. It's an Oregon white wheat, which would normally be soft, crossed to one of our good white wheats. The importance of this is you're not going to build a white wheat market by a one-only variety. So if we can get the NW 13493 marketed, then this one, now you have continuous improvement. It has a lot of advantages. Again, good test weight, good quality, those types of things. Been a good wheat. Stripe rust is not as good as NW 13493, but with a spray should be okay. And it's just had a very good yield record. It's a newer line, so we're going to have to get a few more years of testing. Okay, this is NE 16562. And I don't know if we got planted in a bad spot in the field or what happened here, because you can see the first half of the plot sort of went AWOL and the second half is reasonably good. Maybe there was a wash or something that came through, or a crusting, I'm not sure. It's a Westbred line by Camelot. It and the 15652 have been really, really good wheats for us. So this is an experimental line that we're going to watch. First year in the trial, we'll see how it does across the state and here again next year if it continues to warrant it. Okay, this is NE 15410. It's as opposed to, and this is where the names get a little confusing, there's a 15420 which we recommend for irrigation. 15410 has been a pretty good dryland wheat. Again, I don't know what happened to the first part of the plot, so we'll have to wait and see. First or second year in the trial, we'll get some more data before we decide what to do with this line. This is Canvas. Canvas comes out of the Colorado State nursery program. It's a hard red winter wheat with excellent stem rust and with excellent stripe rust resistance, and that's really why they've released it. Should give growers in that part of the state and those that have a lot of stripe rust and soil and wheat streak mosaic virus a little insurance against some of the risks of producing wheat.
Here we have Canvas. This variety was released the same year as Whistler in 2018. It's a very different wheat. It's a medium maturity. It does have that stem rust resistance and stripe rust resistance. It's intermediate on leaf rust. Very good straw strength. Probably some of the best straw strength that we have seen out of the CSU program. It's a little bit shorter wheat, and what I've started to see is it doesn't tend to stool out as much, so we're still trying to vet out seeding rates and row spacing. Sometimes we can play with those two elements and improve yield. This is kind of middle of the pack. This is going to yield kind of like an Avery or maybe like that Crescent. Probably not going to be a yield leader every year, but it's a well-rounded wheat that has really good straw strength. This would probably be a good wheat if you'd like to irrigate, or if you have really good soils that hold moisture and you're consistently at a higher yield level. Canvas responds well to high fertility, high management type of scenarios. So this wheat again has very good in-use quality. Protein and test weight is very strong with this variety. So again, this is a wheat that we see millers and bakers starting to ask for. We may get on some preferred lists, but all in all, medium maturity, good straw strength, those are two take-homes with this wheat.
This is Fortify. It's another wheat out of the Colorado State program. It's a semi-solid stem. It gives you good resistance to wheat stem sawfly, which is an emergent issue in Colorado, West Kansas, the southern Panhandle also. So this is a wheat that's being grown there. According to this, it doesn't have a lot of stripe rust resistance, which would be the other aspect we have to worry about, but it does have pretty good wheat streak mosaic virus resistance.
Here we have Fortify SF. A couple of these wheats are what we call certified seed only. So with the coaxium system, there is a stewardship agreement that you need to sign. It is a single-use wheat, so you plant it in the fall, you harvest it and take it to the elevator and come back to your seed dealers to purchase seed. Fortify SF here is a certified seed only type of wheat. Again, purchase in the fall, grow and take to the elevator, a single use. Fortify SF you notice the SF at the end stands for sawfly, and we have this as a semi-solid wheat that is used or will be used to defend against the wheat stem sawfly. With that, we have differences in stem solidness. This on a scale of 5 being completely hollow or 25 being completely solid, this is about a 13. So some of those wheat varieties that come out of Montana that have a solidness score of 18, 19, this is going to be a little bit less solid, but much more solid than your typical varieties like Bird or Langdon or some of these white wheats. So we're hoping that we can reduce that cutting effect of the sawfly, and we've seen that in test plots. We've seen that in a replicated trial, much like this one, Fortify has stood up, and other varieties right next to it have fallen down. So under heavy pressure in a research replicated plot, this variety has stood up. We currently have this under foundation increase in a number of different fields across eastern Colorado and some here in Nebraska, and we're hoping to see that strength of standing against the sawfly as we get into bigger fields. This wheat is kind of middle of the pack as far as yield potential, so we don't lose that yield potential with some of the solidness of those varieties out of Montana. It tends to maintain itself. Yields kind of like a Bird type wheat. Nothing super special about its disease resistance. This is a variety that in a higher moisture type of environment, you're probably going to have to spray a fungicide on it, or at least be scouting on a more regular basis. But as far as solid stem wheats or semi-solid stem wheats, this is a very good wheat.
This is Crescent Ax, and the AX stands for herbicide resistance. It's a coaxium wheat, which the herbicide is aggressor, and it is one that will stand up to a different herbicide class than the Clearfield set of herbicides, the imazidols, or trying to remember, what's the name for Beyond herbicide. So this is a different one. They both control grasses. This one has good wheat streak mosaic virus resistance and pretty good stripe rust resistance. It has been one of the prettier wheats for the coaxium. It doesn't really get dinged at all. So it's been a very, very good wheat for that purpose. So if you're looking for a second herbicide resistance, not Clearfield, a second herbicide resistant wheat, the coaxium lines are the ones you want to look at.
All right, here we have Crescent Ax. This is the second generation of coaxium wheats that we have in our program for PlainsGold. It has an improvement on test weight and end-use quality, a couple bushels better than our first release Incline AX. All of these coaxium varieties are going to have an AX at the end, whether it comes from our program or Nebraska or Syngenta or anybody else. You'll see that AX, and what that designates is a coaxium wheat that is tolerant to the aggressor herbicide. Much like Clearfield wheat, there's a herbicide that can be sprayed on this wheat to control winter annual grasses like feral rye, cheatgrass, and downy brome, and jointed goat grass. So this wheat is very early. It has improved straw strength, so in those higher yield environments it's going to stand up a little bit better than something like maybe a snowmass or some of those other wheats out of our program that have a little bit weaker straw strength. So we've seen a lot of different improvements. The disease package is very good. It does carry the wheat chromite gene from Bird, so any wheat streak mosaic virus situation, it's going to fight that a little bit. It's going to defend against wheat streak. So it is improved yield, and we feel like it's a move in the right direction with the coaxium system.
This wheat is called Guardian. It's out of the Colorado State program. Its claim to fame is that it's got among the very best wheat streak mosaic virus resistances, has 2 wheat streak mosaic virus resistance genes, but it also has very good stripe rust, leaf rust, and stem rust resistance. So it's called Guardian because of its disease package, and we'll see how it does in our yield trials.
Okay, here we have Guardian. This is a new release we had last year, and this is a unique release of it's a hard red, and it carries the wheat curl mite gene from bird, and it also has the WSM2 gene to resist the wheat streak mosaic virus. So it is a very unique wheat in the fact that it has both of those genes to combat the wheat streak mosaic virus. The strongest that we've seen in our marketplace as we move out into Kansas. We feel like it's going to do very well in that environment with wheat streak mosaic. It has very good end-use quality. It's a medium maturity, a little bit better straw strength than Langdon, but not by much. And, you know, if we get into a yield environment where we're, you know, 90 bushels, sometimes we can get there on dry land. Certainly under an irrigated scenario, this is a wheat that you would want to possibly spray a growth regulator on. But again, a wheat that mills are going to be asking for. It's got very good protein, very good test weight. One thing that Scott Haley, our wheat breeder, has done is looked at what he calls protein deviation, or a wheat's ability to maintain protein at different yield levels. And Guardian tends to be a wheat that maintains its protein a little bit better than some other varieties. So it's just a very good well-rounded wheat, very defensive type of wheat that can go on a lot of different acres.
This is Breck. Breck is a white wheat out of the Colorado program, and it's very low in polyphenol oxidase, which is one of the quality traits that some of the mills need for things like frozen doughs. So that's why Breck was released. Very good stripe rust resistance, and does have a pretty good package for wheat streak mosaic virus resistance also.
Here we have Breck. This is a hard white wheat out of our program. It is a very strong wheat for end-use quality, and this is a wheat that is participating in the Ultra Grain Premium program with Ardent Mills. So those of you that are closer to the Colorado border that could participate in that with those delivery points, maybe Frenchman Valley or something, this is a great wheat. It yields well as a hard white wheat. It's got good sprouting tolerance. Very good test weight. This is probably the best test weight that we have in our program when compared to all the hard reds and the hard whites. Also very good milling and baking characteristics. It also has lower what's called polyphenol oxidase. So again, an end-use quality that millers and bakers are looking for. It's a very good wheat if you want to irrigate. The straw strength is good. If you're familiar with snowmass, the straw strength on this one is slightly better. And again, the protein and the test weight are very strong. Disease package. This has decent resistance to the wheat curl mite, and very good under a wheat streak mosaic type of environment. Not 100% resistant, but it does have an ability to combat that wheat streak. So, but again, it's a very good yielding wheat. Probably not as top end as Whistler or Langdon, but for a hard white wheat, it competes with a lot of the average hard reds out there in the market.
This is Whistler. Whistler also comes out of the Colorado State program. Very good stripe rust resistance, very good wheat streak mosaic virus resistance. It's a hard red winter wheat, and it's historically has done fairly well in the Panhandle. We'll get some more data on it, we'll make sure on that.
Here we have Whistler. It's a very different wheat compared to Langdon. So Whistler is going to be very late maturing and a very tall wheat, or taller than you're used to. So for those of you that like a taller wheat, that like more straw, more stubble, this is a great option. It is late maturing, so when you're thinking about planting date, this might be in the front of your planting date time frame in the fall, whereas Langdon you might want to plant a little bit later. It does have a very strong disease package. One thing that our breeder has incorporated in some of these new varieties, this one being released in 2018, is stem rust. We're starting to see more stronger stem rust resistance in our newer varieties. As we move into Nebraska, we want to make sure that we have that. So stem rust, intermediate on leaf rust, very good on stripe rust resistance. And again, this is a very good yielding wheat, but it is a later maturity. So it's It's these are kind of two ends of the spectrum. Langdon, very early, short straw. Whistler is very late and very tall straw.
This is Langdon. Langdon is the one that in the last 3-year average has topped the state variety trial in the Panhandle. Again, it's caveat, it seems to be, according to our data, a little bit lower in test weight, but it's a very good wheat otherwise. It's got pretty good stripe rust resistance, and it's got sort of above average, well, compared to most lines, it's not as good as the very best wheat streak lines, but it's still very good. And a lot of lines are totally susceptible. So Langdon is certainly one that on its yield performance, you may have to watch its test weight, how you manage it, but it's got a good disease package and is one that every grower in the Panhandle should be looking at.
Langdon is, it was released back in 2016, I believe, and it's a very different wheat. It's a shorter straw, very early maturing wheat that has good stress tolerance, good drought tolerance, but it is short and it is early. It has a fairly good disease package. The stripe rust resistance is holding, although we do have, I think, a new race suspected in the environment, at least down in Kansas. So, and we may see that stripe rust resistance fall apart a little bit in Langdon, but a very high yielding wheat. It has been in the top LSD for the past couple years. It's performed well in northeastern Colorado and southwest or western Nebraska. So very, very good top end yielding wheat.
This is a Westbred line 4595. Again, Westbred's had a lot of very good wheats in the Panhandle. This one has very good stripe rust resistance and pretty good wheat streak mosaic virus resistance. We're going to get more data on it, but it's been, historically, Westbred knows how to breed wheats for this part of our state. Okay, this is Westbred 4418. This is one of the ones where on the 2-year averages it's been in the top tier. It's 4th. So we'll get this year's data, we'll see how it does on the 3-year averages. That's when I would really start looking at it. Very good stripe rust resistance, has some wheat streak mosaic virus resistance, a lot of other good things as part of this package. So a pretty good solid wheat, good agronomics, good disease. We'll see how it turns out. This is NB 4462. This is one that's been in the 3-year averages, and it was number 3. Basically, I think Ruth and it were tied for 3 and 4, but a very good agronomic wheat, pretty good test weight, moderate for protein. It's a little bit lacking on stripe rust. It's got some resistance, but not a lot, and a little lacking on wheat streak mosaic virus resistance, but you can see by its agronomic performance, it has done really well. So it's a good yielding line that you may have to spray periodically, but it's a good line. Okay, this is 4792. We don't have a lot of data on it in the Panhandle yet, so we're going to get some more data. We'll see how it is. It is from Westbred. It has pretty good stripe rust resistance and pretty good wheat streak mosaic virus resistance. So it's got a lot of the things you're going to want to see. We'll just get the data and determine how well we want to use it. This is Westbred Greenfield, and it's been a pretty good wheat, and it's been out for a few years. It's done well south of here. It actually has a very good yield record in the east also. Good stem rust, does need some fungicide applications for stripe rust. It is susceptible to wheat streak mosaic virus, but it's been a very good yielding wheat, and it's done extremely well in many of the places it's looked at. This is WB 4401, and it's relatively new to our trials. Westbred thinks it's what we would call a racehorse wheat, one that can really do well when you've got everything right to go with it. It's supposed to have very good quality, is that right? Yep. And excellent stripe rust. Could use a little more wheat streak mosaic virus, but a really good disease package. We'll get another year's worth of data on it, but they're very, very promising on that. This is LCS Valiant. It's marketed by Lima Grain. It was actually developed by the University of Nebraska, but it does well in West Kansas, and we don't have a good marketing arm there, so that's why we chose a partner to work with. What we like about LCS Valiant is that it tends to be among the earlier wheats ever released by the University of Nebraska, so it gives a nice complementation on the type. It has excellent end-use quality, excellent test weight, and so far, looking at the trials east of here, it looks like it's going to do extremely well again this year. So it's been a very good wheat. It has two things you have to watch for. One is it is very susceptible to stripe rust. So this is one you would want to think about having a fungicide on early if you see a lot of stripe rust coming. And it is susceptible to wheat streak mosaic virus. But for quality and test weight and the types of things and agronomics, it's been absolutely outstanding. This is LCS Link. It's a red wheat. It was a cross from South Dakota by one of our white wheats. We made the cross, Lima Grain made the doubled haploids, and we jointly released it. Link has done extremely well under irrigation, and it looks like it can do relatively well under dry land. I'm not sure it's quite as flexible as, say, maybe a Rubadoux, but it does appear to be a very good wheat. In a lot of areas, it's got very good stem rust resistance and very good stripe rust resistance, just a touch of wheat streak mosaic virus tolerance. So it looks like it fits well. It's a late wheat, which they grow actually as far south as Texas, which means it must have very good drought tolerance. SY Monument, this is, or at least was, I think, maybe probably still is, the most popular wheat grown in Nebraska. It's from the Syngenta program. It's got its name because it's got tremendous straw strength. It's got excellent stripe rust resistance, stem rust and leaf rust. It is susceptible to wheat streak mosaic virus, but it's just one of those that stands like a monument, and it has been extremely well adapted across the state. SY Spur is relatively new to the trial, but it's in here because it has a solid or semi-solid stem, and it's for wheat stem sawfly. So they're going to see how it does. We'll get some more data on it, but it's the Syngenta first sawfly resistant type. SY Legend CL2 is a new Clearfield wheat coming out of the Syngenta program. First year in the trial, we believe. We know it's got good stem rust. Don't have a lot of data on its stripe rust or wheat streak mosaic virus, but it is another 2-gene Clearfield to be looking at. SY Rugged is another Syngenta wheat. It was released for dryland production. It's got its name because it's got grit, I guess is the way we would put it, in that it seems to do particularly well under harsh and tough conditions. Tremendous disease package, leaf stem and stripe rust resistance, a little bit of tan spot, good soil-borne mosaic. Don't know much about its wheat streak. I think it may be its second year, first or second year. We'll get some more data on it. But Syngenta really likes it for the tough, well, tough to good, because it's got a lot of good aspects to it, but it can certainly take the tough conditions. SY Wolverine is a replacement for SY Wolf. Wolf was the most popular line in the state prior to Monument. So they made a new Wolf, excellent straw strength, broad adaptation, medium early maturity with improved wheat streak tolerance, very strong straw, good winter hardiness, and very good test weight. This is Syngenta APX18AX. The AP stands for AgriPro, the AX stands for Coaxium, and it's one of the new Coaxium lines. It's relatively new to the trial. We don't know a lot about it, but it just shows you there'll be a lot of lines that will be available that have the Coaxium trait in it. That's the alternative herbicide tolerance to the Clearfield program. Like most breeding programs, Syngenta has both the Coaxium trait and the Clearfield trait. SY517CL2 is a new Clearfield wheat. It has the 2 genes, strong herbicide tolerance for beyond. Medium maturity, excellent test weight, good straw strength, good winter hardiness, moderately tolerant to fusarium head blight, which you'll never see, and a few other diseases that are rare in this part of the state. But it's been a good wheat. We'll see how it goes. First year in the trial. This is Long Branch. Long Branch is a line that's been in the trial a number of years. I think it would say it's upper middle in the pack usually for yield. It's not in the top tier, but it's usually close. It's susceptible to stripe rust, susceptible to wheat streak mosaic virus, but it's been, you know, a good line, and I'm sure on some farms it fits their rotation and their systems well. This is Cropland 7010. It's a new line in the variety. We have very little data on it, so we're going to get some more data and then we'll make a decision, or the growers can make a decision on it. CP 7909 is a medium tall hard red winter wheat. It's from Cropland, good winter hardiness, and it's new to the trial, so we'll see how it does. Another Cropland variety, CP 7869. Very good leaf, stem, and stripe rust resistance, good tan spot. Don't know much about its wheat streak mosaic virus. We'll have to wait and see. It's relatively new to the trial. And then the last two are coaxium lines. Again, they were probably bred by either Lima Grain or Colorado State, where they were the ones that had the trait first. This is marketed by Cropland. New to the trial, don't have a lot of data on CP 7050AX, which is this one. This is CP 7017AX, and again, first year in the trial, not a lot of data, is a coaxium line marketed by Cropland. With that, I want to thank you for taking part in our virtual tour. Wish you could be here. We'll see you next year.